to VidCon. So mental illness 0 and Paulina 1. When I started this journey to do more, I knew it was going to be hard, but I don't think I anticipated how hard it could actually be. For the past year, I've gotten my mental health to a pretty stable place. So the main challenge for me with these going out and doing more things that I love is leaving the house and being social. And I just really didn't expect or think about what happens if if my mental health wavers a bit. I don't know why I didn't think that. Nothing is linear, but it just didn't occur to me. So a couple months ago, I got an ad on Instagram. It was like, VidCon Baltimore. And VidCon started when I was 11. So as a kid, I was really into the YouTube scene. It was always a dream of mine to go to VidCon, but it was always in California, so it wasn't really a feasible thing for me. So now that it was coming to Baltimore, I was like, maybe I should look into this. So I went and I went to the website and I looked and I realized I didn't know the vast majority of the creators that would be in attendance. I knew maybe like 5, and then of the 5, I only really watched 2, but one of them being Molly Burke. I've been a fan of hers for about 8 years, so when I saw she was coming to Baltimore, I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. I've always wanted to hear her speak. That would be so fun. So, I went back and forth a couple of days, like, is it worth it to buy a ticket for like a full day just to see 1 or 2 panels? Ultimately, I decided it was. I also looked, and because I know they do meet and greets, but I don't really know how they work, and I thought, oh, maybe she's doing one of those. She wasn't, so I didn't have to worry about it. And I wasn't really going for that. I really genuinely have always, she's a really eloquent speaker, and so I've always wanted to hear her speak. So, I got the tickets. I'm getting ready to go. It's like about a week before the event. I'm starting to get the anticipatory anxiety that I get, but it's nothing I can't handle. It's nothing I haven't gone through before. I got that with Taylor Swift, with the whale sharks. It just seems to be what happens. So, but I had a therapy scheduled the day before the convention, so I was like, okay, this is gonna be fine. I'm gonna get all my feelings out there, and then I'll be set to go. So, I have my therapy appointment that day before, and all goes well, and I'm feeling confident, and I'm feeling ready. Oh, and this is the first event on the big list of things that I had where my service dog could really attend, because I didn't feel comfortable bringing him to the Taylor Swift concert because of the noise, and then he can't swim with whale sharks, so couldn't do that. So I was really excited. I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be great. It's all gonna work out. It's gonna be fine. I get home from my therapist appointment, and something happened. Everything was okay. Everyone was safe. Everyone was fine. But something happened that ended up putting me into one of the worst PTSD episodes I've had in a very long time. And Baron would no longer be able to attend the convention with me. So for the rest of he was fine. He's okay. He's all good. But it definitely triggered me. For the rest of the day, I was in and out of dissociating and panic crying and dissociating some more. So, but I still, I really wanted to go to the convention. I didn't want to let this stop me, especially because, aside from me, everything was fine. So, but it just was feeling it went from this hill that I had to climb to Mount Everest. And so it was starting to feel impossible. But I decided to still go through with it, and so Sunday comes around. I wasn't sure what the lines would be like because I knew it was the first time in Baltimore, so it either meant like there weren't going to be a lot of people or there were going to be a lot of people. So we went. My mom took me at 8 a.m. so that we could get there early. The panels that I wanted were like, I think the earliest one was at 10:30. The whole way there, I just remember feeling really sick. And not like germ sick, like just emotionally sick. I thought I was going to throw up because I was nervous about going to the convention. I had planned to go with Baron, but that had fallen through. I had all these feelings from just being triggered and I just was not in a great place, but I just, I pushed through. My mom did her best to comfort me in the car. We got there and I got out, I got in line, went through the little metal detectors and whatever, and thank God the Baltimore Convention Center has escalators because that staircase was intimidating. So I got on an escalator and, I went and talked with security because I didn't know where to go, and she pointed me in the direction and she made sure I was okay. And then the person that checked me in was really nice and friendly. So, it was going well. They gave me a map, they gave me my pass, and everything was great. And I got into the convention and I realized I didn't know what to do and I didn't really know where in the convention I was. I knew where I was in the building, but I didn't know where all these different things were. So I was like, oh, well, I will look at the map and it will be fine. I saw a group of people by this like dining area, and then there was like a little lounge that people were sitting in, but I was at this point, I still had a lot going on, so I was too nervous to go over there or sit down anywhere. So I just found they had these like independent standing tables. I just stood by one of them and looked at the map and looked around and realized I couldn't read the map. But that wasn't gonna stop me from trying to look like I knew what I was doing and pretend like I'm reading the map. So I stood there with the map like, oh, okay, yeah, I know where, I got this. And I thought I was doing a great job looking normal, but I think I must have stood there for too long, too awkwardly, because this person came over like, hi, you look really nervous, are you okay? I was just like, no. Yeah, you're right, I do need help, but also I was working really hard on being incognito with my anxiety. So this person, I told them, I was like, yeah, I don't really leave the house much, kind of nervous, and I can't read the map, so I don't know where I am. And so they helped, first of all, my map was upside down. So they flip it back around. I was looking at the wrong convention day, so they showed me the right day, and we look and they point out, okay, here's the quiet area, here's where your panels are gonna be, you're fine, there's tables to sit, you good? And they were really, really nice. And as much as I don't want to be called out for like looking like lost and afraid, I was really glad that they came over because I don't know what I would have done. I'm sure I would have figured it out or manned up and asked somebody, but it was nice not to have to do that. So I went and I sat down at a table and I texted my boyfriend. I was like, I'm here. I'm really panicked and uncomfortable and I kind of want to go home, but I'm here, I'm doing it. And he gave me a lot of moral support, and I was listening to music as time went on. And then I noticed everyone was wearing, I didn't know the creators, but I know like in fan culture there's always like some kind of fun thing. Like, for me it was like Dan and Phil, and it was wearing cat whiskers to their events. So I noticed a lot of people were wearing like themed outfits and themed things, and I thought that was cool. People really went all out. So it got time, well, it wasn't time, but it was getting closer to the time of the first panel. So I went to the aisle or hall that had the rooms, and I found the room. And so I felt too awkward to like go back to the tables even though I knew where the room was. So I just kind of stood in the hallway just waiting, and I tried to not look awkward, and I was listening to music, so I hope I just looked, like I was waiting around. And then I see this woman walk by. and I'm like, is that Molly's mom? And so I see her notice the room, and I'm like, okay, that has to be Molly's mom, because it looks like Molly's mom, and she's looking at the room that Molly's gonna speak in, so it must be Molly's mom. And you know, that was cool, and I was like, okay, I'm doing it. Look, you're doing it. You're at the convention. You're standing alone in a hallway, but you're doing it. And they had this big, I guess it was, I'll know when I look at the photo, but they had this big VidCon kind of light up thing that everyone was taking a photo in front of. And I decided, oh, well, you know what? I feel like, I don't feel good, but I would like a photo to commemorate this, to look back on and be like, oh, look, you did that. You felt terrible, but look, there you are. So I stood there staring at it, trying to build up the confidence to ask a stranger, which eventually I did, and you know, they were very nice, and they took a photo of me, so I got that. And then I saw some people enter the panel room, but I thought, oh, okay, well, it's not time, but maybe they're just letting people sit, so I went and checked, they were, and then I got like a really good seat. I think I was like relatively like the first row, and I was like center with the panel. So that was exciting, and I think I started to relax, feeling like, okay, well, I'm where I need to be, so it's okay, and I can breathe. And so I started to regulate myself. Then the panel people, I don't know, but then the speakers came out for the panel, and Molly comes out, and she's with her mom, and she's with Elton, and you know, they go up on stage, and there were some other speakers that I am not familiar with, but they were all very good. But I just, you know, I'm doing my best to focus on what's happening, and for some reason, you know, mental illness is mental illness, it'll do what it does. But for some reason, seeing Elton made me think of Baron, which made me think of the incident, which made me think, it got my brain going. And I just remember sitting there and trying so hard to focus, but also I just wanted to cry and run out of the room and go home. But I stayed, you know, and PTSD affects people in all different ways. For me, in this one instance, it just became like really hard to see. My vision was just very blurry, and I wasn't as present as I had hoped to be, but I was present enough to still hear what was going on. I took brief videos just so I could remember it in case I couldn't. And everyone spoke really well. There was this one speaker, I think her name is Shiadani, but I am so sorry if I messed that up. She said, what did she say? Oh yeah, so they were talking about, I think it was a brief part on mental health, and she had said, you know, for like a year ago, I couldn't call the dentist. And for me, that's a very personal thing, because I avoid the dentist. I'm afraid of the dentist. It's not my thing. So it's just like, same. I felt like understood. Like I just started doing that this year as well. So it was nice. Everyone, you know, had a lot of good things to say, and you know, Molly was her eloquent self and spoke great. And the panel ended, and I had about 30 minutes, I think, until the next panel. Yeah, 30 minutes until the next panel. It could be wrong, I don't know. I didn't know what was going on that day. But I see, you know, her mom come in, and she's kind of talking to people. So I was like, oh, you know, I'll go over and say hi to her mom, and then I'll go and find the next room that I have to be in. And I wasn't expecting much of anything, you know. If her mom ended up being like, oh shoot, I would have been like, okay, I'll go. But she wasn't. I said hi, and she said hi, and we talked for a little bit. She was really friendly. And so I was just sitting there, and I see Molly kind of coming off the stage where the panel was, down this little staircase. And her mom gets up and goes over to her, and I'm like, okay, well, that was a nice interaction. I guess it's over, so I should find the place. But then I hear her mom telling her, I don't remember what her exact words were, but she was like, there's this girl over here, she's named Paulina, she's a viewer, and she brings Molly over. And then all of a sudden I'm talking to Molly. Now as a fan, this was very exciting for me. As an autistic person, I was like, I did not prepare a script for this. Also, it's a bad day for me. I don't know what I'm doing. So I think I said the same exact thing I said to her mom to her. I was like, I hope you like Baltimore. I was so excited when I saw you were coming here. Nobody comes here. You know, oh my gosh, this is great. And then and then I think her mom started to offer to take a photo of us, and then I kind of asked if she would take a photo with me, and then she said of course. And so as I'm handing Molly's mom Neve my phone, I start feeling like a nose nuzzling my, like, I had like a fanny pack on, and I look down and there's Elton. He's like, hi. And I'm like, oh, you're working, can't acknowledge you, but mental high. But then he really started nudging. I was like, what's happening? And then I realized, oh, so the fanny pack is what I use when I go to like events, like concerts and stuff, but also I used it like when I'm working with Baron, I'll always have some treats in there just in case. So I was like, oh, you know, and they noticed. They were like, what is happening? And I'm like, I'm so sorry. My service dog, when he comes with me, I often have treats in there. Like, oh, and she was so nice about the whole thing. I felt bad, but yeah, she was so nice. She was like, oh, he wants the treats. I bet he could smell them. And I was like, yeah. And then she told me to tell Baron that Elton says hi. And I'm like, that is so sweet. And like, so we're taking the photo, and she like reaches over and like, you know, puts her arm around me, and I put my arm around her for the photo, and she goes, oh my gosh, you're so soft. And as somebody who's very texture focused when it comes to fabrics, that is like a huge compliment for me. I had just gotten this new sweater that was very soft, and I was like, oh my gosh. But I didn't really know how to respond to that because I don't know. So I just said thank you. And we took the photo, and she was so nice. And then yeah, that was in, and she started talking to some of her other, you know, fans that were there. And I wasn't expecting that at all, you know, because I had seen, so she wasn't doing a meet and greet, and I had never been to a convention ever or VidCon ever, so I didn't know what to expect. But that was great. It was great. I mean, I know, you know, my brain does a lot of hard work to make me think that things went really bad, but it was a really pleasant exchange, especially since I was feeling horrible. I was just, ugh. So I'm looking at the map again, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go find the other room that it's in. So I find the other room, but it has a sign that says the wrong panel name. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll just go in anyway, because this is the room and there's nothing that said anything has changed. So I go and I sit down, and I'm like in the second row. It's not that great they're very tight seats in this one room. So I'm sitting there and kind of feeling squished, and there's a lot of people in there, and a lot of people that I wouldn't expect, but I was like, okay, I mean, I guess. And then I see two other people walk in, and they're kind of looking confused like I am, but they sit down as well. So I'm like, okay, I guess this is it. But then the person that had helped me read the map properly in the morning had come and sat next to me, and we kind of made eye contact, and we're like, oh, hey. And then I'm sitting there, and I'm just starting to feel unsure because the TV screen came on with the list of panel speakers, and I was like, okay, that is not my panel, but this should be my room. So I was like, well, maybe this person might know again. So I leaned over and I asked them, and they were like, oh, there was a room switch. I was like, oh, okay, thank you. And then I go back and I realize it's the same room I was in for the first panel, but now it's like the room is full. And so I found a different seat, which was like so there were like two kind of sides of rows, and I was on the left side this time in like the second row. Yeah, the second row. And Imani comes out. She comes out first, and I'm like, oh, right, okay. So when I had seen the panels before, I knew Molly was speaking on the first panel, and I knew she was speaking on the second panel, but I had seen that Imani was speaking on the second panel, and she is the second person that I watched the content of. So I was very excited to see her. She is also an eloquent speaker. Everything she says, like, I learned so much, and also she makes things very easy to understand that I think I would normally find complicated. So I was very excited to see her, and I waved hi and she waved hi back, and I'm like, oh, that's so nice. And at this point I'm starting to come out of the episode, the PTSD episode. So my mood is starting to kind of regulate a little bit, and so I was able to kind of fully be present at this second panel, and it was really nice. This was the panel on disability and social media, I think, or breaking barriers. But getting to hear all the speakers talk was really nice, and getting to be fully present was something that I really appreciated my brain letting me do. So yeah, and then afterward, after the session ended, I went up and I saw Imani was kind of still on the stage, because it was a stage with the panel tables, so she was still there. So I decided to go and talk to her and thank her for making the content she makes, and she was so nice and she looked gorgeous, and so that was a really nice experience. And then I ended up accidentally being in line for Molly again, and I didn't really quite know how to get out of it because it had kind of eaten the line, or not the line necessarily, but the gathering that had come to speak to Imani. So we were just in it, and I was just moving forward, and I realized it, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll go this way and let the people that haven't met Molly ahead of me, and I'll just go last. I mean, not to meet her exactly, but just move, through and leave. So I'm making my way through, and I start talking to this new person, and we're talking. She's also a fan of Molly, I believe, and so we're just kind of talking about that, and we're talking about where we're from and Baltimore and the area and parking and whatnot. And then so I realized somehow I was close enough to the front that I realized I had seen people wanting to take photos with Molly, but then her mom's arms kind of being like full of chips and snacks and stuff. Honestly, relatable. I always need all the snacks. So I started taking photos of people when they needed photos being taken of people. So then I was kind of stuck. I mean, not stuck, but like, I had like a mini job or a side quest. So I'm just taking photos of people meeting Molly for a little bit, and then everyone meets her and she goes on her way. And then I think I said one last thing to her mom. I had said, I hope Baltimore treated you well, and her mom was like, oh yeah, it was great. And then I talked some more to this person in line that I had been talking to, but that was it. And then I walked out, and I was hungry, and when I looked around, there were only like 2 stands. It was like a sandwich stand and then a churro stand, and I didn't really like any of the options for sandwiches, so I was like, I'll just get a churro. Plus I'm very limited eating right now because I had a dental procedure, so I can't eat with like the first front teeth. So I got a churro, and my dad was like, I'll be there in a minute. And I was like, okay. So I take my churro outside. I'm just eating it in front, trying to process everything that happened. I got in the car and I went home. But I think this is overall, I'm really proud of myself for this, because it was definitely a feat, and it wasn't, it kind of showed me, things in life happen, and there are going to be moments where you feel awful, like the worst, but it's really important, for me at least, to do the things that I want to do and not let that get in the way, because I think if I hadn't gone and I hadn't had that opportunity, I would have been really disappointed. So I'm just really fortunate, and I wasn't even anticipating meeting Molly or Imani, and then I did, and it was crazy. I mean, it was amazing, and it just was a really good experience. So yeah, I wish I could have gone without having all of that stuff going on, but I'm proud that I know that I can still do things that I enjoy despite having that go on. So yeah. Bye.